me. Maybe it's just me. It's fine. It is nice out, but apart from that, I don't know. Is that full moon? So we got to beware of werewolves.
Yeah.
No, it's lovely though. It's beautiful.
Oh, it's beautiful. Okay.
Werewolves are killed.
All right. So we're gonna get going, and today's sermon, the title of it is "Unfaithfulness Punished." And it was interesting that as I was, I've been planning out these sermons months ahead of time, and to be honest, I didn't even think of the significance of today and what today was and what it means. But I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But I just thought it was interesting that sometimes you're able to look back and see how God's worked and how He's prepared stuff. Because when I was doing this, like I said, when I was kind of getting ready for this sermon and planned out the title, I didn't know we were going to do songs like we did today. And I didn't know exactly where we were going to be in terms of, come on in, grab a seat, you're good. I didn't know where we would be in Hosea. So you'll kind of see, especially with what today is, the significance of today, and all those things. And it just kind of all ties together. And for me, as we were singing those songs and I was thinking about today, I was just kind of going, it's just so amazing how God is, that today was planned before it happened, before any of us thought of it. And I think we'll see how it all works together. But last week we talked about some challenging texts. And we talked about what's the purpose of the book of Hosea. Remember, this is very interactive. You guys are going to learn whether you want to or not. What's the purpose of the book of Hosea or any of the minor prophets? What's the purpose of Hosea or any of the minor prophets? Yes?
Demonstrates grace and mercy.
Well, that's the Bible. But specifically Hosea. What is God calling us back to? Return to Himself, righteous living, and social justice. Yeah. All right. So does anyone know what the book of Hosea is about? I just gave you the answer.
Return to God.
Return to God, yes? Oh, you guys are paying attention. This is fantastic. So, can you guys hear me on this? I can't. Can you talk? No. All right, well, whatever. All right. So, like I said last week, what's wrong? Oh. Like I said last week, none of us have a problem with those three things. It's only a problem when we combine the three. I mean, no one will ever say, you know what? I have no desire to return to a holy God. Everyone's like, yeah, I want to return to God. If you have any even remote belief in God, you'll go, yeah, I want to be closer to God. I want to have a relationship with Him. Same thing. Anyone will tell you, I have no problem with righteous living, which means living in accordance to a standard that's set by a holy God. So you'll say, I have no problem trying to be a good person and obeying laws and just doing good things and not punching people in the face and not stabbing someone and not stealing from them. Most of us will say, no problem to that. And social justice. Most of us are like, yeah, you know what? I don't think it's right that there are people that are hungry. I don't think it's right that there's racism. I don't think it's right that I can't get a job because my name is Jamie, or whatever the case may be. Oh, are you Jamie? I'm sorry, I just was throwing that out, just seeing if you're paying attention. But we don't have an issue with that. What we do have an issue is when we're told, take those three things and do them all at the same time. Return to God, righteous living, and social justice. Because the biggest problem we have with that is what? Yeah, ourselves. Oh, was he raising his hand?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the biggest problem we have is us. We get in the way of a return to a holy God. We get in the way of a return to righteous living, and we definitely get in the way of social justice. I mean, honestly, how many people are opposed to young children working in factories, making a penny a day to make clothes for us? How many people know where their clothes comes from so that they're absolutely sure they're not violating that? You see what I'm saying is, we want social justice, But how many of us are going to actually really, really go, you know what, I'm not going to buy affliction clothing because I know that some poor boy in India or Indonesia or in Malaysia is making this, and he might have been sold into slavery, because then you know what we have to deal with? We have to deal with our own conscience. And no one wants to do that. But to live righteously, social justice, and return to a holy God, it would require that. So most of us are just like, you know what, I don't even want to know. I don't want to know, I don't want to bother with it, and it's just easier to do it this way. So, and this, the combination of these three things, I'm hoping you guys realize that those three things are the gospel. That's the gospel. Now, obviously, Jesus, grace, the primary, when we think gospel, but think of a return to God, righteous living, and social justice. A return to God is repentance. Righteous living is living like Christ. And social justice is loving one another as we love ourselves. It's all the components of the gospel. So we can see this gospel message has been brought to us long before the New Testament was written. It's been in the culture. It's been, God's been communicating that since the beginning of time. Now, as I mentioned to you guys, today is a very significant day. It's the anniversary of 9/11. It's our 10-year anniversary today. And most of you guys know, it's one of those things everyone remembers, unless you were two or something, but everyone remembers where they were, what they were doing, when it happened, and then that surreal shock you felt as you continued to watch what was going on for, I think the whole thing lasted about 2 hours, if I remember right. But I just remember everyone just glued to the TV once we found out what was going on. I was driving my kids back from school, listening to the radio, and they broke in and they said a plane had hit one of the World Trade Center buildings. This was before they knew it was a significant commercial jetliner. They were just like a plane, maybe it was a small commuter plane. I remember making it to our office, and we were all talking about it. None of our employees had left the office. Everyone was just sitting there watching the news as the second plane hit. Then there was that, you start feeling that, what in the world is going on? Like I said, you have that surreal feeling. But when we look at essentially what it was this terrorist attack. On what, though? Was it a terrorist attack against Americans? Was it a terrorist attack against Christianity? Was it a terrorist attack against what? And I think when we look at the targets and we look at what happened, it was attack against our culture. It's attack against Western culture. Think of the three targets. There was actually four, right? One didn't make it. The first two were the World Trade Center, right? The two buildings. Those two buildings, when you think about it, worldwide symbolize financial wealth, prosperity, capitalism. Second building, Pentagon. And what does that represent? Military, power, security, safety. The final target was supposed to be what? The White House. And what does that signify? What does that signify? Authority, democracy, freedom. What's that? Leadership. So do you see what I'm saying? Is you take those three things, what they did was they attacked our ideals. They attacked what we believe in. Notice that they didn't attack any churches. They didn't attack any places of worship. And I'm talking about whatever faith. They didn't attack any of those. Do you know why? Because that's not what we believe in. I mean, I know this sounds, I don't want you guys to think that I'm making some political statement or something. I'm talking about what is in our heart. People, when a church burns down, people aren't running in the streets weeping and sobbing. But when a plane crashes into a building, people are terrified. Because what does that building really signify? I'm not talking about a loss of life or injury. I don't want you guys to think in any way that that's not important. That is extremely important. But what I'm saying is think about it. People were saying they attacked us. They attacked a part of us. Well, they attacked a symbol of something. And that's what really got to us. They attacked, the Pentagon got hit. That's where all the great military minds are. If that place is vulnerable, are any of us safe? That's what was going on that day. I mean, I couldn't even imagine if the White House actually got hit, what that would have caused, I mean, in terms of our just morale and stuff. But it was an absolutely horrific and terrible day. And like I said, I remember watching it on TV just horrified, just in shock. I could not believe it was happening. And you had thousands of people who died, thousands. You have people that barely escaped. We have one friend of ours, if you just mention terrorism, 9/11, she literally starts to shake, tears uncontrollably. She was in Tower 2 when the second plane hit, and she was one of the people that made it out, ran down the stairs. Still to this day, I'm talking 10 years later, the very mention of what happened attacks her emotionally. I mean, she's not able to cope for a few minutes. And like I said, it's you look at it and you're like, and you see her, she starts shaking, crying. It must have been horrendously traumatic. What I saw on TV and experienced versus what she actually went through, I can't even imagine. And then all the first responders who rushed in, people who just moved in, didn't think of themselves, it was more or less like, we got to go in there and save people and help people and stuff. Absolutely, absolutely amazing. And do you guys remember the video of the people who made it out, and as the first building was falling, people running down the street screaming? You know, to me, those are the two most vivid memories of that day. Is I remember the people running as that huge cloud of smoke started coming down the streets, and people were just running. And I remember there was a guy in a business suit still carrying his briefcase. Any of you guys remember this? His suit was all like dirty, and he was just kind of walking like, what just happened? Like he literally was, it looked like he, you know, like he was picked up and put on like Mars or something, or on the moon, and he was just kind of like walking around like, what's going on? But his suit was like ripped up, and I think his briefcase, he just was holding the handle, right? I don't think his case was actually there. He just was holding the handle, like he was walking back from work like this. And so I remember that image, and then obviously I remember the one that probably most of you guys still, it was in the front page of the paper today, if you saw it. The man who jumped from the World Trade Center, and he was just head first going down. And I mean, think of that. Think of to be in a sense of that much despair, that you're on the 71st floor, you're 700 feet minimum in the air, and to jump out. Think of the hopelessness, think of the despair that someone's under to even be willing to go, there is no chance I'm going to make it out alive, and I don't want to burn, and I don't want to crumble in a building, I'm just going to leave. Unbelievable. I mean, what we saw was just... Now, so what was the result of that? I remember being in church the next Sunday, the following Sunday. We had a ton of people in. Lots of people showed up to church. For some people, an event like that is a return. You know, they want to return back to God. For other people, they're looking at it going, I need to start living better. Something like this happens and it shapes your moral compass. Other people, I need to really make an effort to serve and to really take the time to make sure other people are cared for and stuff. And I think that for the most part, people responded some way to this, and it was traumatic. But I remember the question that happened more often than not. You guys know what that question is? What were people asking all the time? Where was God? How could God? And you know what I think? That we literally cheapen who God is when we ask that question. We literally are saying, I don't think of you enough at all. I don't value who you are. I don't think you're worthy. Because do you know where God was that day? He was right there. He was grieving the loss. When that guy jumped out of that building, God was brokenhearted that someone was that hopeless. That someone had that little thought of their own life that they were willing to do that. That someone had that little value. God was grieving with those people. And you know what we don't have the right to do? We really don't. We never have the right to ask that question. Where are you, God? You know why?